Adele sat at the poker table and looked at her cards. She watched the other players, and it was obvious that they didn't have much money and didn't have normal cards in their hands. One of them was excited. The others were upset. The girl equalized the bets with the other players, and the dealer revealed the common cards. Adele saw that she already had a pair of aces. The player sitting next to her, a bald man, tried to pretend to be nervous, but Adele knew he must have something better than two pair. On the next round, most of the players missed a turn without raising, and one did bet and the bald man raised. The girl realized that this was the last round and wanted there to be something really worthwhile. She also leveled the bet. The dealer revealed the fourth card, and Adele realized she already had two pair. She was in, but there was a catch. The man next to her said he was having no luck at all, but the girl knew he was cheating, and it was obvious to her that he had at least 3 cards of the same rank. It still seemed to the bald man that Adele would raise her bet at least one more time. He realized that if she equalized the bet, things would get complicated, but the cards he had were pretty good. The croupier told the players to place their bets. The bald man realized that if the girl sitting next to him was going to have 3 sevens or 8s, he wanted an ace or a deuce, so he decided to raise the bet. Adele asked the player next to him why he was raising the bet, even though he had bad cards. The man replied that you have to go all the way, and that's what the excitement is all about. Adele said that she had only recently started playing and wasn't good at it. The man advised her to try to take risks because if she is lucky, she will win everything, and sometimes taking risks in a game is justified. The girl said that if he thought so, she would believe him and equalize the bet. When the dealer pulled out the last card, Adele realized that she had succeeded. She thanked the man for the tip because she had taken a risk, and because of that, she was able to get a card that suited her. The player replied to the girl that that was great, but that this card suited him as well, and said that he was putting everything he had on the line. Adele realized that her strategy had worked. She decided that if she won, there would be cake tonight, and if she lost, nothing. Adele smiled and said she was betting everything she had too. The croupier announced that the game was over and asked everyone to show their cards. The bald man had a full house. He was already celebrating his victory and was reaching for the chips. The player was saying he was taking everything this round. The man turned to his neighbor at the gaming table, laughed, and suggested that she must have 3 identical cards. He said he was sorry to take her money from her right in front of her. Adele stopped the man's hand and said she also had a full house and asked who had now won. In the case of identical combinations, the one with the 3 identical cards higher in rank won. The girl rejoiced at her victory and thought it was clear that she was going to turn the tide of the game, and the man couldn't believe that he had lost. Adele realized that she needed to get out of there faster because the bald man seemed to be more than a little upset, and she didn't want him bothering her. He yelled after her and told her to wait. People who were in the casino were discussing the girl and saying that she robbed the players at the table of all their money. She had been talked about a lot lately, that she was just a money eater. About the girl rumored that she appears as if out of nowhere and leaves players without a single penny, then also suddenly disappears. It's like a money ghost. In addition, each time the girl looked different and no one knew anything about her, except that it is a young girl. At the casino cashier's office, the winner was told that she was doing better and better, and at this rate, she would soon be able to afford to buy the place. The girl replied that it was just luck and thought it would be great if she didn't at least mortgage her house. Walking out of the casino, Adele realized that too many people recognized her this time. She realized that apparently she would have to leave here soon too, but now she was celebrating her victory and thinking about what kind of cake she should choose. The employees of this place were right. She really was a money eater, and her real name was Adele. She had one specialty: she could read people's emotions. She learned about this ability when she met her Aunt Penella, who was also a gambler and involved the girl in the process. She told her that if they continued to work together, they could always win, and asked if she wanted to earn a little money with her aunt. Little Adele was willing to do anything if she could stay with her. It had become her only specialty and way of earning money. Sure, she has great gambling skills, but that's not all. Luck played a big part in this business. While walking down the street, Adele met the employees of the candy shop she often went to. They said that if she came today, they would pack her a second cake for free, in honor of the anniversary, and gave her a bouquet of lilies of the valley as a gift. The girl promised she would definitely come and said she adored Lily of the Valley. Adele was content to be lucky, but that day she was luckier than usual and received gifts at every corner. Adele didn't understand what was going on. Was it a special day? She hoped that if she was so lucky, maybe money would fall from the sky. She thought she would definitely pay for carrying around so much money. The girl dropped the bag of coins. She knew that when she had too much luck, something bad was bound to happen. She thought about the fact that she might meet an assassin along the way. At that moment, someone pushed Adele in the back, and she dropped all the flowers and money. The girl fell to the ground. When she opened her eyes, she saw some boy lying next to her. He was scared, screaming and crying. His eyes sparkled brighter than any jewel. But now was not the time to think about that. The boy was begging for help. The girl tried to calm the child. She told him to catch his breath and tell him what happened. But he replied that there was no time and he needed to hurry. A woman came up behind her and apologized and said that apparently their child had caused some inconvenience, and he was so mischievous. The boy asked Adele not to believe her and said she was lying. The stranger called the child to her and said that he was embarrassing this beautiful lady. Adele was wary of the woman and noticed that she had one hand behind her back and asked what she was hiding there. The woman replied that she didn't know what she was talking about and she had nothing in her hand. She showed both hands, telling her to hand over the baby because she didn't want to make a fuss. Adele noticed that the baby's clothes were ragged, while this woman's clothes were new and shining clean. The heroine doubted it was her child. She didn't look like his guardian. Adele said that this kind of stunt is very popular in her professional field, and she noticed that the woman was hiding a knife in her sleeve and asked her what this child deserved to be treated like this. The stranger replied that she doubted the girl should worry about it. Adele replied that she couldn't trust a child to someone as suspicious as she was. The woman said she was very perceptive, but she should have left while she was letting her off easy. The stranger pulled out a knife and said that since she didn't want to give up the baby, all she had to do was finish them both off. Adele and the baby were very scared. The girl tried to speak louder so that someone would hear them, but no one came and she didn't know what to do. Now she realized why she had been so lucky all day. The boy apologized and said he would go himself, but Adele stopped him with her hand and said that an auntie she knew said that nothing in this life is given for nothing, and today she had been very lucky. It was time to pay for it. The protagonist said that adults should protect children and told the boy to run when she gave the sign. The stranger with the knife said she was very brave and in that case, offered to taste the stab of justice. Adele said that she would gladly taste justice, but first, the offending woman would taste the stone. The girl swung, threw a stone at the woman, and told the boy to run. The stranger asked Adele why she thought she was here alone, and the protagonist realized she might have an accomplice. The fleeing boy was caught by a very large man and threw him back to Adele. The woman told him to accept that dying here was their fate. The boy cried and apologized to Adele. He said that if he could have known this would happen, he wouldn't have asked for her help. The main character put her hand on the boy's head and offered to make a bet. She said that if they died here, she lost, and if they lived, she won. The boy was in agreement. The stranger asked if they agreed before accepting their fate and death. The woman said everything else would not be discussed in the other world and pounced on them with a knife. Adele held the boy tightly to her. At that moment, his eyes lit up and something happened. Their abusers disappeared as if they had vanished into thin air. The boy opened his eyes and didn't realize where he was. There was a girl hovering over the bed he was lying in, asking him how he was feeling. She told him that the moment they were attacked, he glowered, and then his nose bled and he fainted. The girl went on to tell him that those strange people just disappeared for some reason. Eventually, because of that, she was able to escape and bring him here. But she didn't understand why she was okay. The boy scrutinized the girl who was talking to him and asked who she was. The girl laughed and said that she had completely forgotten to put on her necklace. Clasping the necklace around her neck, the girl changed her appearance, and the boy could recognize her as the very girl who had saved him. He was shocked. Adele explained that she had her reasons for buying such a necklace and had given a lot of money for it. The girl said that it was just a hobby of hers to disguise herself. She said that only the two of them knew her true appearance and asked them to keep it as their secret. Adele asked the boy what his name was. His name was Ed. Adele introduced herself as well and said it was nice to meet you. She asked the boy why those people were trying to catch him. He was visibly nervous and clutched the blanket in his hands. Adele, who had a knack for reading people's emotions, realized there was something he couldn't tell her. She said that if it was hard for him to talk about it, he didn't need to, and the most important thing now was that they were both alive and safe. Ed asked the girl for forgiveness. She stood up and walked over to the vase of flowers and told him that he had nothing to apologize for. The girl took a sprig of lilies of the valley in her hand and said that one day things would get better in his life and his life would be joyful and sunny. She gave Ed a sprig of lilies of the valley. Adele told the boy to rest and said she needed to go somewhere now. Ed asked where she was going, but the girl couldn't tell the baby she was going to the casino. She had to lie that she was going to work. The kid grabbed her dress with his hand and asked if he could go with her. Adele turned around in surprise and said he couldn't, and he should rest because he had fainted. And besides, the two people who had attacked them might accidentally see him on the street. The little boy said he was scared to be alone. Adele realized that the boy was really scared because he was still very young, but taking a child to the casino was not a good idea. Then she thought that, on the other hand, it might not be a bad idea to take him with her because he doesn't understand anything, and as an exception, she decided to take him with her. Adele sat at the gaming table and listened to her neighbor talk about how this was his 5th win in a row and he had caught the flow. He explained that in gambling there was such a thing as the flow, and if you catch it, the wins will follow. Ed asked Adele what the game was. She told him that it was Baccarat, a card game in which players strive to put together a combination of cards such that their point total is equal to or close to 9. This game was the main breadwinner for Adele. The basic rules of this game are very simple. The banker and the player each receive 2 cards and take turns revealing them. The one with the sum of the cards closer to 9 wins. The boy asked if the stream that one of the players was talking about really existed. Adele wasn't sure about the flow. God sits on the card table all day, waiting for the opportune moment to destroy a player as efficiently as possible. And catching the opportunity, finding the toughest way possible, pushes the player into the abyss of despair. The same thing was now happening before Adele and Ed's eyes. Adele wondered what would happen if the confidence of this naive simpleton was noticed by God. She reflected that if she were God, she would immediately want to see tears streaming from his eyes. Ed said there would be a tie, and Adele announced it loudly enough. She said it was their lucky fairy speaking, and one should follow her advice, so she bet on a draw. If you win, with a bet like that, it pays 8-1. The boy was shocked that Adele was so easily willing to lose such a large sum of money. He didn't understand if she was doing it on purpose or not, and assumed that she could have calculated everything but didn't want to show it to the others. The boy asked the main character if she would be okay. She thought it was cute that he was worried. The girl patted him on the hair on his head and told him it would be okay. Adele's cards were revealed. She had a 6 and a 3. Together, these cards totaled 9 points. Since she had bet on a draw, she needed the total to be 9 points to win. When the banker's cards were revealed, the audience shouted in surprise. There was already quite a large number of people gathered around the table. They were wondering how they could guess. Adele announced to everyone how happy she was to have won and said that she couldn't have guessed that even the numbers would be the same. The banker's cards also had a 6 and a 3. Adele turned around and realized that she had attracted too much attention. She put her hand on Ed's shoulder and told him that her boy knew a thing or two and that her brother had great intuition. People asked how they knew there would be a tie in this game. They called them fortune tellers. Some people asked if they could win today. Some people invited them to play at the same table. The girl realized that she had to run away quickly and told the crowd that it was just her brother's luck that she had accidentally guessed. They barely made it out of the crowd of crazies. Adele reasoned that she was with child and should call it a day. She was sorry to take him with her, for he would be tired. She told Ed that they should call it a night because too many people had been paying attention to her since the beginning of the evening. Adele suggested that the boy use the money he won to buy a cake. He, looking at the chips, asked if that was the money she had in mind. The girl told him that he had to pay a commission and exchange the chips for real money. Ed said that the casino was making a profit in the redemption process. The girl agreed with him. She was shocked at the words the little guy knew. She said he grumbles like an old lady, but he can't do that. The line at the register was very long. There was a guy standing at the register asking the employee to not be so adamant and give him another chance. He was offering them a ring and asking them to take a closer look at it, the way it shined. The guy told the cashier that this ring was very expensive and that there was only one real wizard for every 1,000 underachievers, and out of 1,000 wizards, there was only one genius, and that was him. He said that he personally enchanted this magic ring himself. The man who was holding back the huge crowd went on to say how much magic he had put into this ring, and he still hadn't recovered yet. He believed that this ring was his child, that it was flawless, and he must surely win, for he was missing all his money, including his tuition, which he must pay tomorrow. The boy begged to exchange the ring for chips, but was told that it was his personal circumstances, and this was not a pawn shop, but an exchange office. Adele and Ed walked closer to the cash register and asked the employee what was wrong and how much longer they had to wait. The casino employee apologized and explained that this young man was preventing them from working properly because of his stubbornness. At this time, the boy with the ring was scrutinizing Ed. Adele jerked the boy away from this strange guy and asked what he was doing to her brother. And the guy with the ring told the boy that he was just like him, and even though not much time had passed since the initiation, but he could still feel the power in him. The strange stranger told Adele that if she was the sister of such a child, she surely knew the value of this thing. He offered to trade their chips for this ring. The girl was shocked and disagreed with such an offer. After all, it was her winnings today. The stranger fell on his knees and begged her to agree to his offer. He said that she would save someone's life, and only by having the chips he would be able to play and get all his money back. The guy said it was a memorable ring for him, and he made it for his exam last year. He told her that the ring was highly valued and the guy was able to advance to the next level early, and such a jewel was not often seen. Adele realized that he wasn't just a student, but a student of a magical academy. It was unclear why he wanted to exchange such a valuable item for chips. Raising her head, the girl saw that everyone was looking at them and trying to figure out what was going on there. The protagonist realized that she had to end it before more people gathered. She told the stranger that she understood him and asked him to get up. Adele was willing to give up the chips and take the ring in return. The crazy guy was very grateful that she agreed. They wanted to get out of there as soon as possible, but the stranger ran after them and asked them to wait a minute. After catching up, he gave his card and said that if anything strange happened to the ring, for her to be sure to contact him. Adele and the boy were walking through the dark city, and he asked if she was okay. The girl explained that she had enough money from her last winnings, so she was fine. Plus, it didn't look like the guy was lying about the ring. It didn't look cheap. It seemed like a good deal. The girl wanted to take Ed's hand, but he pulled away from her. She assumed maybe he was too old for that, but the boy said he wasn't, so he gave her his hand. He told her that it was the first time he'd ever been to a casino. Adele explained that the casino wasn't the best place for his development, but sometimes she could take him. It seemed to her that when they were together, she had a lot more luck. The girl promised that she would protect him and asked if he wanted to live with her. Ed happily agreed. Adele said it was wonderful, and the two of them wouldn't be so lonely. She explained that it might be a little hard for him to move around all the time. The girl said that she would be moving out of this house soon too, and pointed her finger at the house. The finger she was pointing at had a ring on it. Suddenly it glowed. They looked at it in surprise, and it shone brighter and brighter, and eventually Adele was blinded by a flash of light. When the flash ended, the girl found that Ed wasn't around, and her house was gone. The protagonist clutched her hands to her head. She didn't understand what the hell was going on, where the house had disappeared to, where Ed had disappeared to. She assumed the boy wanted to play a trick on her and was playing hide and seek, or it was magic. Adele was called out from behind by a man and asked what she was doing. The girl turned around and asked who he was. The man replied that he had come to see the land and was choosing a house. The heroine was of course going to move, but the house was not for sale yet. The stranger called Adele a strange lady and asked what kind of house sale she was talking about. He explained that after the place had been sold at auction 5 years ago, it had been vacant the whole time. Adele didn't understand how a house could have been sold at auction, also 5 years ago. She asked the stranger to elaborate a little more. The girl heard a noise behind her and turned to see that there was a parade going on. It was unclear why it was now, because it was held only on the day of the founding of the state. Adele overheard people standing nearby talking about how hard it was for her sister to get ready for the founding parade. They were looking at some balloon and saying that it had good quality and was worth buying the latest version. The heroine realized that Foundation Day was in mid-October and it was now March. She couldn't understand what was even going on there. Suddenly, Adele ran to the newspaper shop. She picked up the paper and couldn't believe her eyes when she saw the date on it. She of course realized it was all a little strange, but this missing house of hers, the wrong date on the paper, and the magic round thing she was seeing for the first time. Adele assumed that she had been time-traveled 10 years forward. The girl tried to calm down and remember everything in order: how she and Ed had been to the casino, how they had won an insane amount of chips, how they had met a strange guy at the exchange office who had begged them to exchange the chips for the ring, and afterward, when they were on their way home, something had happened. The girl realized that this situation had something to do with the ring because it suddenly began to glow. It was hard to believe that all this happened because of the magic of the ring. Adele remembered the name of the guy who gave them the ring. It was written on the business card: Rudy Ryanel. The girl went to the Wizard's Tower. In the lobby, she talked to an employee who, after checking her status, said she was a regular customer. Adele asked to check everything again. She said that she spent a lot of money here and, every year, bought impossibly expensive metamorphosis necklaces from them. The guy sitting in the lobby said he couldn't verify her words. He said that the Tower of Wizards updates the status of their customers every year and deletes the information of those who haven't been active for 10 years. The guy looked at the orb and said she made her last purchase in February 852. Adele thought he was an impenetrable moron and that he didn't know anything. An employee of the Tower of Wizards explained that even customers of high status could not meet Mr. Rudy Ryanel without an appointment. The girl explained that he had told her himself to come. The time traveler remembered that she had his business card. She took it out of her pocket and handed it to the guy sitting at the reception desk. Adele said that he had personally given her his card. The employee replied that you can't do that anyway. He showed the business card that Mr. Ryanel uses, and it was very different from the one the girl had given him. The guy said it was a business card from the ones he used back in his days at the academy. Adele explained that she was transported 10 years forward. An employee of the Wizard Tower said that she had to put in a huge amount of power to do that. Otherwise, the magic wouldn't be able to transport her 10 whole years forward. The girl shouted that she didn't use magic. Behind her back, Adele heard the voice of the very guy who gave her that ring. She turned around and saw the Grand Master. He said he was passing by because he needed to personally pick up some papers, but he heard the screams and came over. Adele grabbed Grandmaster and was saying that they had finally met and he had grown noticeably. Security had already started running towards them, but the guy replied that everything was fine. Rudy asked her what business brought her to him. She was angry, realizing he didn't recognize her, and said he was the reason she lost her home. The guy said it was their first meeting, but noticed the same ring on the girl's hand. The master was sitting on his knees in front of Adele, and she was drinking tea. He told her that he was now the Grand Master of the Tower of Wizards, and so he would make amends for everything and pay a large compensation. The girl explained that she didn't want an apology or compensation and asked him to just take her back. He explained that time could be fast-forwarded, but unfortunately, there was no way to go back. The specifics of the magic used is time acceleration. The master pointed out that he had put too much magic into the ring and it couldn't contain it, so when the magic broke free, it swallowed such a large chunk of time at a time. The boy smiled and repeated that time only flows forward, not backward. He compared it to the flow of water and said that unfortunately she couldn't go backwards. The girl was shocked and said there was no way that could happen. She was worried about Ed. The master interjected who she was talking about. Adele explained that she had a little boy with her, and she was transported here, leaving the child with no one else to take care of him. Rudy said he was sorry, but there was nothing he could do, because life hadn't stood still and everything that had happened in those 10 years couldn't be reversed. Adele didn't know what to do because it turned out that she didn't keep her promise, and Ed must have waited there all night all alone and she never came back. The girl cried and ran away. Adele went outside. The foreman followed her. She thought about what she had promised the boy to protect him. The boy remembered that Adele then said that this boy was her brother, and he remembered him because he discerned impressive magical power in him. The girl confessed that she had actually saved this boy by accident. She said that she had once grown up as an orphan herself, and the day she decided to decorate a piece of bread due to severe hunger. She was beaten badly, but a lady was not afraid to intervene and saved her. This lady offered little Adele to live with her from now on, and she did more for her than anyone else. But due to some circumstances, they didn't live together for long, and if it wasn't for her, maybe Adele wouldn't have become what she is now. The protagonist wanted to be that person for Ed, to give him hope, to be his refuge. The girl knew how scary it was for a child to survive alone, and she wanted to be there for him, to be a support for him. Adele asked Rudy if there was any way to find Ed. The boy replied that they had too little information about him. The girl thought that she had offered him all this for nothing, because he must have been very upset. It was hard to imagine the fear he had to go through. She mentally apologized to Ed. Ed was sitting at the table. The maid announced that Jade Dolphin was here. He entered the office and told Ed that he was doing his best to find one man again, a search that had been going on for over 3 years and still no luck. He suggested that the blonde-haired guy give up, since it had been 10 years since those events. Ed replied to Jade that if he had come to him to mumble, he should leave. The maid offered him a cup of tea. Jade said that he didn't think that someone who had been called a crazy gambler since he was an adult had the right to say that. Ed said he didn't care about the gossip, and his father couldn't kick him out anyway. Jade agreed with them and said that no one could go against his donkey stubbornness. He wondered what would be the grand prize this time. Ed pondered that if the prize was no longer attractive, they should up the ante. He said that the prize would be the magic stone frame. Rudy Ryanel was talking to Adele, who was in her real appearance, without the effects of the magic metamorphosis necklace. The Grand Master was talking about the magic stone frame. It was a once-in-a-lifetime chance. He told the girl that the skeleton mines, it was just a ray of light among the other mines that had almost no magic stone left in them. Considering that they belonged to the Eppelheim family, the stones were definitely supposed to be huge. Adele didn't understand why he was saying all this. Rudy reminded her that she was a talented gambler and could go on a casino cruise organized by the Eppelheim family. The girl replied that he was awfully clingy and revealed that the casino had only been a means of livelihood. But now he'd decided to redeem her lost 10 years by promising to support her. And she saw no reason to visit the casino anymore. Adele assumed that he wanted to use the winnings to improve his cobblestones, and the reasons not to go there only became more. Rudy resented how his creation could be called cobblestones. He said his baby could hear her. He told Adele that his creation not only kept records, but was also equipped with artificial intelligence, a universal genius that monitored the situation and could make a decision. Adele looked at the Grand Master and didn't understand why every time he opens his mouth he starts showing off. She recommended to just buy those magic stones if he needed them so badly. Rudy replied that there were too many people who wanted them, so the amount needed to mass produce the spheres the Wizard Tower couldn't buy at the moment, and he begged for help just once and promised to pay for all the costs. Adele didn't want to do it. She said that only rich people would gather there. It would be hard for her to unravel them and deceive them. Rudy said that according to rumors, the winner would receive a pendulum of fate and asked the girl to think again. Hearing about the pendulum of fate, Adele froze. She remembered her auntie calling her beautiful and comparing her to the pendulum of fate. She said it was a legendary thing that told its owner only the truth. The woman said that her girl Adele was 1,000 times better than these bling. The girl remembered that according to rumors, the pendulum has a soul, so it is able to feel and point the right direction to solve any issue. She realized that this was her chance to find Ed. Adele decided that she would go on this cruise, but she couldn't guarantee Rudy would win. The Grandmaster thanked Lady Adele and rushed to hug her. She pushed him away and said she understood that he was glad, but she asked him to get off her back and said she needed a new identity and appearance. Rudy replied that he had it all figured out, so he had prepared something for her. He handed the girl a magic necklace and said that her new name was Christina Maybell. She was the third daughter of the Maybell family, and, currently traveling around the empire, it was curiosity that drove her to the decision to go on the cruise. Rudy had said that she liked the metamorphosis necklace in the past, and he thought that she wouldn't want to show off her true appearance. Adele noted that the Grand Master was quite guessing and asked him to be careful not to call her by the name Adele. She asked when she should set out on her journey. In response, she heard that it would be tonight. Adele, in the guise of Christine Maybell, arrived at the port of Selkios on the cruise ship Elliot. She was almost late and thought it was unbearable that Rudy had informed her of the cruise on the day of sailing. From the looks of it, it was hard to tell that it was a huge casino inside the ship. The whole place looked like a palace of some sort, and the girl could only assume how rich they were. A woman's voice behind her back told Christina that she hadn't been seen here before. She turned around and saw a red-haired girl. She replied to the stranger that she was taking this cruise for the first time. The girl introduced herself and said her name was Chloe Aston, and this was her fourth time here. The red-haired lady said that if she was called an addict, she wouldn't even refuse. Christina, upon hearing this girl's name, realized that she was from a very rich Earl family. Obviously, anyone could be found on this ship. She laughed, introduced herself to the Countess, and said it was a pleasure to meet her. Chloe reciprocated. She said that she was glad that thanks to such a tempting prize, there were new faces. The scope was just grand, and she hoped to even meet my lord here. Christine did not understand who the girl was talking about. She apologized and said that she was not from here. Chloe told her that it was the name of the second son of the Eppelheim family. Jade came out to the audience and thanked them for making the decision to go on this little journey with them. He cheerfully welcomed everyone into their casino and said that over the next week, they would have the most memorable experience of their lives. Jade disappeared without saying a word about the pendulum of fate. This made the girl very angry, and she thought that damn cheater Rudy Ryanel had tricked her. By the way, the Grand Master felt what was being thought of him at that moment. Chloe told the girl that this time she was counting on a very rich winnings, and if she got a chance, they would see each other again and wished her good luck. Christina reciprocated and decided that in this case, she would just return the amount spent and go from there. The cruise ship sailed on the sea, passing islands and rocks, and seagulls circled around. Christina was already seated at a table with other players. A player sitting next to her was asking for a 7 to fall. Christina said that apparently the god of luck was on his side today, and she lost again. The girl gave the chip to the winner. Christina realized that she had just started playing with these chips, and it would be too good if she started winning all the time. Rule 1: if the winning percentage is too high, she will be afraid of failure and will stop playing actively. So she decided to lose sometimes, keeping the number of losses at a level not higher than 40%. The winning player offered Christina to play again, but she said she was tired and that was enough for today. Rule 2: you need to play in moderation, and no matter how good your abilities are, gambling is a cold war with the theory of probability. The more you gamble, the higher the chance of losing everything. The girl realized that these empty-headed idiots who left everything to chance would end up fighting among themselves and losing, and she had no reason to get involved in this fight, so now it was better to take a walk and rest properly. Christina heard a commotion in the gambling hall. Someone was being accused of cheating. It was the first showdown, and the girl was very interested. She got in among the crowd of observers because she heard a familiar voice. A man was saying that he was a victim of Chloe Aston's scam. She replied that she was innocent and asked that he prove his words. No one forced the man to lose all the time, and Chloe was even embarrassed by his failures. The man held the card up and said that if she wanted proof, here it was, because that card was bent. Chloe said that he couldn't prove that she hadn't bent it already after the game, and even a 3-year-old is capable of better deception. The man said that the fuss made would not be good for Lady Aston. The daughter of the Aston family was cheating in the gambling hall. The Count could get very upset if such rumors reached him. Christina ran to Chloe's rescue, but saw the girl agree and said she would return everything she won. The man replied that she had made the right decision, since he would have won if she hadn't cheated. But given the Earl's good name, he promised not to make it public. Christine said how unfortunate it was that someone who called himself a gentleman and even tarnished his image got too little in the end. The man asked who she was and why she was prying. The heroine replied that she was a friend of Lady Aston. Christine offered to play with her, making her bet on the disputed chips if he was so sure of his luck and the fact that he lost because of deception. Chloe stood puzzled. The man said he had no reason to agree since he'd just gotten his money back because she cheated. Christine promised to double his bet if she lost and said that she was playing for Lady Aston so she could afford such a waste. She asked if a gentleman who was initially fortunate in the game could have any reason to refuse her. If he won, his chips would double and his good name would be restored. The protagonist even gave him the right to choose the game. Christina said that if he disagreed, they could have a fair trial, publicly, in front of everyone involved, including the organizers. The man was visibly nervous and said they would play blackjack. He wished the girl would not regret it later. In this game, the winner was the one whose combination of cards was closer to 21 points than the opponent's. The winning percentage of the player in this game is a maximum of 49%, which is much higher than in other games, so it is one of the most popular games in casinos. And although the rules of the game are similar to Baccarat, blackjack has a favorable option for the player to surrender, but in their case, this option was absent, and the winner was determined by chance. It seemed suspicious to Christine that a man who had caused a scandal with accusations of cheating over a couple of chips would choose a game where you could win by luck alone. The decks in the game were changed before each game, so card counting became impossible. Christina realized that something was wrong. The man opened his cards and the sum of the points of the first two cards was 21. That meant a win if there was no draw. The girl had an overcall, which is a situation where the sum exceeds 21 points. In the next game, the situation was repeated. She had a constant overcount, and so did the banker. The man won for the third time and thought he had caught the flow of luck. Christina was sure he was using something to cheat. The banker told them to place their bets. It was already the fourth round and the end of his luck was about to be seen. This time, the man decided to bet bigger. The girl realized that it was unlikely that the Eppelheim family had gone to such a scam for the sake of a few pennies, which meant that the banker was not in cahoots with him. She supported her rival's bid. The man was very confident that he would win, and Christina was trying to figure out what was wrong. He was drawn another card, and the point total was 21. He shouted to Chloe that even heaven knew which side was fair. Christina asked for another card. She was again outnumbered. Lady Aston leaned over to the protagonist and told her that she had already done enough, and she was grateful and just for the girl to stand up for her. Adele, in the guise of Christine, felt it was too soon and the game had just begun. The banker pulled out her cards. She had an overcall, which meant the man had won again. There was some strange noise. They turned their heads and saw a guy whose nose was bleeding. When Christina had met Chloe at the beginning of the cruise, and Jade had greeted the guests on the ship, Lady Aston had told them that the man was the heir to the earldom and seemed to be quite close to my lord. He often introduced him at various events. Jade said that all games are run by their dealers, and chips obtained by other means will be forfeited. He asked for attention to the fact that magic of any kind was forbidden on board, and if violated, the perpetrator would be isolated until shore. Rudy added a communication function to Christine's necklace, and she could contact him if she needed to. Jade also said that in a week's time, exactly at midnight, the person who collected the most chips would receive a magic stone mined from the skeleton mines. Hearing about the nosebleed, Christina turned and looked at the guy and realized everything. That was the reason for 4 straight wins. The liner worker offered to escort the man to a place where he could rest, but he refused and said he was just too worried about the outcome of the game. Christina told her opponent that he must be tired, because in a game with 2 decks, of the 8 nines available in them, he put half of them into play. The man was angry and said that what she said was nonsense and that she must not have been satisfied with the result since she started picking on him. The protagonist couldn't believe that even now he was going to insist that she was talking nonsense. Christina took the cards from the table and ran to the crowd that had been watching for quite some time. The girl asked for people to pay attention to the reason for the constant falling out of nines. The audience realized that he was cheating with magic. Christina said that it was terribly strange that he was having constant blackjack and his opponents were overdrawing, but his accomplice had overused the magic and his body couldn't take it. Players who had previously lost to this cheater were very indignant and asked for their money back. They called him different words and said that he also blamed others for what he did. The culprit tried to run away. He was stopped by a tall, blonde-haired guy and told that he would be isolated due to his use of magic, especially since they had warned him about it. The man tried to justify himself and said he hadn't used anything, but the guards took him to sit on the lower deck until he remembered. Christine looked at the blonde guy and assumed he was one of the guards, so statuesque. When he turned to face her, she was in amazement at how handsome he was. It was unclear to the girl why the guards were interested in her. Of course, she didn't recognize Ed in this guy. He apologized and asked if she remembered what his accomplice looked like. Christina replied that he had long sideburns and was wearing a plain gray jacket. The guy thanked Christina and asked if she would mind helping them out a little more. She happily agreed. The heroine realized that her necklace was also a magic item, and if she said something stupid, she would be captured immediately. Christina said that she was suddenly dizzy, Chloe supported her, and Ed pointed out that just now she was perfectly fine and suddenly dizzy. The girl said that she must have been a little overexcited and asked to be allowed to rest for a while and offered Lady Aston to help investigate in her place. Chloe agreed and told the girl to get a good rest. She said she was already inexpressibly grateful. Christine quickly ran out of there, and the blonde guy looked at her and suspected something. Jade went out to the guests, wished them a good day, and asked if they were enjoying themselves. He announced that they needed to give the dealers a moment of rest and apologized for yesterday's accident. He promised that tonight would be an unusual evening and from now on the games would be suspended. They would now open the wine brought from the Eppelheim estate. The servant poured Christina some wine and told her that if she needed anything she could apply. She assumed it was compensation for the trouble she had caused yesterday, but they had better slip them some extra chips. She didn't understand how this casino wasn't a gambling opportunity. Lady Aston approached the protagonist and asked if everything was all right. Christina replied that everything was fine. She hoped that yesterday's investigation had not tired Chloe out too much. Lady Aston replied that she had only been asked a few clarifying questions. She wanted to express her gratitude to Christina again, for she had not thought that anyone could believe her and help her. The girl replied that anyone would have said that she was innocent. Chloe said that she had returned all the chips, and the games had been invalidated, and Milord had personally returned everything. Christina asked if she had really met Milord. Lady Aston told her that the tall blonde man they had seen yesterday was Milord. The girl realized that she had acted terribly suspicious yesterday, and all in front of the main organizer of the cruise. Christina suggested that, since Chloe returned a whole mountain of chips, it turns out that she is probably the only contender to win for the current day. Chloe thought about it and said that was probably not true, because Arsene Gone was still alive and well. She pointed to the man who was standing off to the side and said that she had met him a couple times at the games. Arsene's lineage wasn't too ancient. According to Rudy, they owned one of the most prosperous casinos in Chedo. Christina watched him from afar, and he seemed like an excellent player. Suddenly, Christina's necklace around her neck glowed. She realized that this was how she could get caught, and she needed to get out of there right away. She told Chloe that she had to meet someone and wished her a good day. Christina and Rudy had a connection through that necklace. She asked him what had happened and said she could have been accused of using magic. The Grand Master apologized and said he was just worried because he hadn't heard from her and asked if everything was okay. The girl told him that everything wasn't fine, and she had the bad luck to get involved with scammers using magic. Rudy called them scoundrels and asked if the lady was okay. She replied that everything was fine, and the main thing was that she shouldn't get caught with the necklace. Rudy told her not to worry about it because in magic, there is a concept of waves, and in low-level magic, these waves are quite large and easy to detect, but things that he created are almost impossible to detect. Christina heard some noise and said she would contact him later. Milord approached the girl from behind and asked if she was all right. He said he thought she seemed worried about something and her complexion was pale. He asked again if everything was all right. The girl replied that she was just out for some fresh air. Their conversation was interrupted by Jade Dolphin. He addressed the girl by name, and she said that she was a little hot after the wine and went out on the deck. She clarified how he knew her name. Jade replied that he'd watched her perform yesterday and had been quite impressed with the way she'd exposed the crook when she'd stepped into the middle of the room. He kissed the lady's hand and introduced himself, saying that he helps the young gentleman run the casino. He was honored to meet her. The lady introduced herself and realized that this guy was not as simple as he seemed. My lord said he was glad that the lady was fine because he was worried that she was still not well. The girl was nervous, but told herself to calm down and act naturally. Christine replied that she had been too nervous yesterday, which had made her dizzy, but now she was feeling much better and thanked him for his concern. Jade said that the 3 who had been convicted of fraud were now in isolation. They would be detained until they disembarked so they could forget about them. The girl was glad to hear that the conflict was over, but she said not to worry about her. She was worried that they would interfere with the game, but she wasn't afraid of these people. My lord said that given that she was able to recognize magic just by seeing one of them bleed, then that her knowledge of magic was pretty deep. He asked if they could discuss this point in a little more detail. Christina thought he sounded rather good-natured. She said that unfortunately she didn't think she could help in any way. It was clear from the expression on my lord's face that he suspected something. The girl said that there was magic among her acquaintances and that she was involuntarily involved in their conversations, but she could not call herself an expert on the subject. Christina realized that it was time to get out of there. The girl said that they had gone up to the deck to talk about something, so she wouldn't interrupt them and hoped they would see each other again. Jade was angry that Ed had gotten to this girl. She was about to leave, but my lord asked her to wait a second and gave her a badge. He said that she would need it soon. Christina replied that apparently there was going to be an event and thanked him. She couldn't wait to find out why he'd given her the badge, but the important thing now was to get out of there. When she left, Jade wondered why he was asking her so many questions about magic, since yesterday's conversation with Lady Aston should have been enough. My lord said something was bothering him. Jade replied that he couldn't pester the man just because of that, and realized that Ed was up to something when he gave her that badge. My lord asked who the 3 men who had been captured were. Jade replied that they were just common idiots who had nothing to do with what he was thinking. Ed was amazed at his comrade. My lord was putting on a show with wine and had centered all the guests in the main hall, and he went to find the one hiding and trying to get him to the lower deck. Jade said they were friends, of course, but he really scared him sometimes. My lord thanked his mate for trashing him every time. The ship docked at Cape Marone. Jade asked if he was going to go by it tomorrow. Ed said yes. Rudy spoke to Adele on the magical link and told her that my lord had started to take some action. The girl didn't understand what he was talking about. He told her that there were rumors that Duke Eppelheim was seriously ill, and so his heir certainly wanted to strengthen his position among the aristocrats. The girl realized that was why the man who hadn't even shown his face for almost 3 years suddenly appeared at a major event. The girl was very worried that she might be caught with the magic necklace and said that she just picked a bad moment and it was a nightmare. Rudy reassured her and promised that everything would be fine and she would never get caught. Adele was glad that he was so calm, but said that if she got caught, she would be the one in jail, not him. Rudy replied that in addition to the metamorphosis function and a means of communication, the necklace is equipped with a number of other functions, and even if things don't go according to plan, he will be able to get her out. The girl spoke ironically about how good he was. Grandmaster realized that she didn't believe him and offered to show her. He said he could come right over. Adele replied that if he was going to continue with this heresy, she was going to disconnect, and it was time for her to go to bed and cut the connection. She wondered what the significance of the badge was, as my lord had said she would need it soon. She thought about it some more and fell asleep. The next day, the ferry docked in Marin Harbor. Jade announced that they would be there all day and recommended that everyone get ashore and walk around a bit. He announced that at 9 p.m., their week-long voyage would continue, and they would head back to the port of Celsius. Adele, in the guise of Christina, stepped off the ferry. It had been a very long time since she had been to this place. There, she had filled herself with goodies, shopped heartily, and drank heartily as well. She thought that no matter how big the ship was, being cooped up on it with rich special people, eating only gourmet meals was terribly exhausting, and here she felt like she was living. It also annoyed the girl that everyone on this ship was too nice. She expected these games to be hot, exciting, with rapid ups and downs, and she thought that this was not a casino at all. Besides, no one said a word about the pendulum of fortune at all, and she decided that she would never help Rudy again. Christina realized that she was lost. Even though this road should have led her to the port, she decided to ask a passerby for directions. The man was rude, clearly scared the girl. She was so scared she seemed to run into an even stranger place. As she ran, the men shouted at her that she seemed to have money, how she got into such a neighborhood. They asked her to buy them drinks. Christina ran scared out of there. She hid around a corner and tried to catch her breath. The girl thought she wasn't going to make it out, and she needed to be more careful not to get into a suspicious situation under my lord's nose again. Around the corner, she heard a familiar voice. She peeked around the corner. A pebble that had fallen nearby gave her away. She realized that she needed to get out of here as fast as possible, but my lord was already standing behind her, asking what she was doing here. Christine replied that she was just lost, and asked what he was doing there, since he seemed to be buying something forbidden. My lord realized that she had seen everything. He said he had bought some medicinal herb and wanted to take it to his father. This herb is unfortunately very rare, so it could only be obtained in this place, said my lord. He added that it was not a good idea to walk here alone, and she had entered a very dangerous neighborhood. She had better go to the wide street. Christina replied that he was right, but no matter how much she wandered, she couldn't find a way out of there. My lord said that in that case he would escort her out and offered to take him under his arm. Christina was very uncomfortable, so uncomfortable that she seemed unable to breathe. She pondered whether he was always so silent and decided that she should ask him something. The girl decided to ask about his father, the Duke, how ill he was. My lord was surprised that the girl hadn't heard the gossip and Lady Aston hadn't told her anything. My lord explained that there were many rumors about his family's affairs, but she really didn't seem to know anything, and he decided to introduce himself to her properly. He said that, though a bit late, his name was Edwin Eppelheim. The girl introduced herself in return. For some reason, she felt very awkward. On the way, they ran into men who asked Christina to buy a drink as she walked alone. And they said she didn't want to drink with them, but she had gotten herself a rich boy somewhere, and they resented her. My lord said he didn't think they were her acquaintances and asked what had happened. While she was looking for the road, Christina asked him not to worry and said it was just a gang of hooligans. My lord asked her to forgive her and took the girl by the shoulder. He said he knew it was making her uncomfortable, but told her to bear with it for a while. Christina thanked him and told him it was okay. It was out of the blue. Edwin asked if the girl liked gambling, since most of those who decided to participate in the cruise were united by a love of gambling. The girl replied that he must be doing similar activities because he was also interested in games. Christina said that it's great to feel such excitement, as if your whole life is at stake, but it's stupid to risk yourself. It's easier to bet money. However, the whole time in the casino was too quiet. In Christine's opinion, it seemed to her that now there was no one there feeling the excitement and enjoying the game to the fullest. Edwin replied that it seemed that way to him too. The girl said that she and he hadn't known each other that long, but she had the impression that he read her like an open book. Christina joked that her winning percentage wasn't very high. If her life was on the line, she'd be dead by now. Christina noticed that Edwin smiled and realized that he knew how to smile after all. My lord said they were almost there, and she would be able to get further on her own. He wasn't going back to the ship and said he had some more business to attend to. He made a small request to Christina to give Jade Dolphin a note and said she could find him on deck 3, but if it was burdensome, he wouldn't bother her. Christine took the note and said she could handle it. Edwin wished her luck. A crowd had gathered at the entrance to one of the gambling halls. A woman was trying to get in. She resented the fact that she couldn't get in because it was the same casino. The guards answered that this hall was only for special guests, and if she didn't have a pass, they couldn't let her in. Christina looked for the third deck and came across a pandemonium of people. She was trying to figure out what had happened there. The woman who was trying to force her way into the lounge was saying that if it was about money, she would pay what she needed to pay. But the guard stood his ground. The lady was yelling about having money and begging to be let in. Then Jade Dolphin came down and told the madam that she was quite confident of her wealth. He explained that it was the same behind that door as the decks below, only they used special enchanted black chips. Jade said that meant that behind that door, the entire fortune of her kind could be destroyed in an instant at the whim of Mistress Fortune. He explained that she was not on their special list, however. If she really wished to go there, he, as the manager, could arrange it. Upon hearing about the black chips, the woman thanked Jade but said he shouldn't abuse his powers. The manager thanked the Honorable Madame for her understanding and said that they had prepared an extensive program for the regular guests as well. Christina heard all this and thought that these were the chips equivalent to 100 gold pieces. It was equal to her spending in a few months. She realized that indeed, such games could bankrupt a rich man like Rudy, or even the whole Tower of Wizards in a blink of an eye. She wondered what kind of people could afford to enter this hall. Jade said there were guests with a pass. He turned to Christina. She was shocked and didn't know what he was talking about. He showed her his badge and asked if she recalled the item. The girl showed her badge and was told she could come in. The guards opened the door in front of her. She couldn't believe she was being asked to go in there after being told that you could go bankrupt in there at any minute. She didn't understand why Mr. Edwin had given her a pass. Did she really look that rich? But the girl decided to let it be, and mentally thanked my lord. She handed Jade the note, though she realized now that it was only a ruse to lure her there. As she entered the special guest lounge, Christine decided that since she was here, she should enjoy it to the fullest, because if she thought about it, it was a different atmosphere. Compared to the noisy casino on the lower decks, it was so quiet that her every step could be heard. They played the same games as in the other rooms: poker, blackjack, baccarat, and she couldn't believe there were no new games. Christina saw chess. It's a game for two people, the goal of which is to move pieces on the board to catch the king of the opponent. A man approached the girl from behind and told her that this chess she was seeing, it was magical, and the rules of the game were similar to the usual ones, but there were a few hidden ones. He said that he was the one who brought them here and knows everything about them. Christina looked at the chess. She wondered if the game really used magic. The man replied that magic is not a hidden rule, but is used to spice up the game. The man offered Christina a game, but she declined and said that she was unfamiliar with chess and thanked him for telling her the nuances. The stranger voiced the secret rule and said that these were conditions set by the players themselves, the same for both sides, and this time he would make an exception and allow the rules to be set unilaterally. He said that Christina had to promise to bet 10 chips. The girl finally felt excited in anticipation of the game. She just had no reason to refuse, and she agreed. The would-be opponent asked the girl what rules she wanted to add. She came up with one and said that when she had no bishops and no more than 2 pawns left, she could switch the king and pawn places once. She was sure she could definitely win that way. In chess, 2 players take turns making moves by moving pieces around a board divided into squares. The object of the game is to capture the opponent's king. Christina had only played chess a couple times and was just familiar with the rules. In this game, you need to be able to strategize. Players do not rely on luck, but there is something that unites them with card games. It is the need to be able to control their emotions. It is important not to give away your excitement in difficult situations. If the opponent tries to recognize the emotions that the opponent hides, you can turn the game in your favor. Christina could see that her opponent thought that she was no match for him at all, and it seemed that he wanted to bring the game to an endgame as quickly as possible. His facial expression said that he was ready to destroy Christina. He said that at the beginning, Lady had said that she was sure she could win and called her very self-confident, especially for someone who was just familiar with the rules. Christina thought that chess was a game for aristocrats, and she, an orphan, was not destined to deal with it. But one day, her auntie bought a chessboard, and so began her training. True, the board was later used more as a pot rack. The girl laughed and said she remembered something. The man started to attack and made an attempt to capture the opponent's king. He recommended Christina to think ahead. Next came the next attack. The man offered to give in to it lightly once. Christina declined, but said that she really wasn't very strong at chess. She wondered what role was played by the piece that stood near the board. The man replied that it was a magical figurine of justice, the goddess of law and justice. A very subtle magic was embedded in this figurine to determine the winner with the utmost accuracy, even if the hidden rules were worded vaguely. If a player's decision disobeyed the rules, she would raise her sword, and if he acted according to the rules, she would raise the scales. Christina said it was very entertaining and resembled something like a pendulum of fate. The man replied that he too has heard rumors about it, as has everyone on this ship, and he has been hearing and gossiping for 3 years now. The man said it was a shame that this magical statue could only determine if a decision was justly made. If they had a pendulum to help them make the right choice in any situation, it would win games like chess. The opponent attacked again. Christina realized she was hopelessly losing, and that was her strength. The man told her that the rumors about the pendulum were not gratuitous, and it was said that Mr. Edwin was on this ship looking for his first love with its help. Christina could not believe it, for she thought him aloof and that there was not an ounce of romance in him. She replied to her rival that he knew many entertaining rumors. He agreed with the girl, but said that he was doing all this to divert her attention from the game. Christina was losing and couldn't avoid turning her opponent's pawn into a queen. The man said that despite the rules she had introduced, her chances of winning had not increased, and in this situation, the innovation could not do any good. The opponent suggested that the girl surrender. The man was sure that he was the winner, but Christina said that she applies the hidden rule right now and replaces her pawn with Mr. Felix's king. In this case, the white king will be under attack of the black king and can't escape from him, and all available fields for him to move are also in the kill zone. The man shouted that this was not allowed and she could only swap her pieces. Christina again voiced the rules she had made, which he agreed with, and said that the rule didn't say that she couldn't use her opponent's pieces. Felix was panicked and realized that this was how he would lose, and he couldn't agree to that. Christina understood that the gamble was only starting now. At first, she was going to ask the organizers to determine the winner of this game, but since there is a fair justice here, everything becomes much easier. The protagonist realized that if she was right, the probability of her winning was quite high. She asked the goddess of law and justice if she could agree, and Justitia raised the scales up, which meant that the girl was playing according to the rules. The man was horrified. He said it couldn't be, and suggested that the girl could have planned the whole thing from the beginning, but she replied that she was just lucky. The opponent didn't know how to lose with dignity and said it was no different than cheating. Christine resented the fact that these damn aristocrats start behaving so ugly every time they get into a disadvantageous position. The man shouted, waving his arms and accusing Christine of cheating. He told her to invalidate the game. At this point, Jade walked in and said that he saw that everything was fair, and of course they could open formal proceedings. But how would people look at the man later when it was confirmed that the lady was innocent? As he left, the man yelled that he wasn't going to leave it like that. Jade apologized for showing up so late and asked if the girl was okay. She replied that she was fine, but she didn't know at the time that something terrible was going to happen to her because of this situation. It was all bad. Christina caught her attention from the very first game. She was going to keep the winning and losing percentage as she planned, but after that, she won every game, even spinning roulette. The girl had no way of losing or losing money. She won again and again. Her last resort was to flip everything without looking at it in a game of coincidence. But she didn't leave the others any chance to win and won an incredible amount of money again. People were already whispering behind her back that it is impossible that the right combinations fall out time after time, and she is definitely cheating. And the organizers do not pay attention to it. Although Christina herself would like to know how she managed to win 10 times in a row. She could feel the stares, and now it looked as if she had beaten Felix at chess just by cheating. She felt that if she stayed here any longer, something bad would happen, and she had to get out of there. Everyone in the casino began to avoid the girl, and she realized that tomorrow's games were a failure. Christina decided to go out on deck and get some fresh air. The sea breeze was very fresh. Behind Christina's back, a question sounded as to why she was running away. It was Sir Felix. She answered him that she was just out for some air. He paced menacingly in her direction and said that she was still pretending to be innocent, and he had been watching her the whole time, and it wasn't just luck. Christina asked what else it could be besides blind luck. The man called her a pathetic liar and accused her of definitely using some dirty trick or doing something to the goddess of justice in magic chess beforehand. He told her that if she confessed now, he was just ready to take back his chips. The heroine replied that if he doubted the outcome, let him go to the organizers for a hearing instead of threatening people he didn't know. Felix said that there was no question of any proceedings. It did not matter to him, because he saw everything with his own eyes. The man suggested that she might be hiding some sort of magical device under her dress. He came closer and closer to the girl. Christina tried to take a step back, stepped on her dress, and fell off the deck of the ship. Felix was shocked and said he just wanted to deal with it, and then ran to call for help. The girl was already underwater. She couldn't breathe. It was cold and dark. Her past was flashing before her eyes, just like the day she and her aunt broke up. The first thing she remembered was stealing. A life like hers was commonplace in the suburbs. You steal, you get caught, and you get paid for it. Little Adele was beaten by 3 guys and told that if she stole in the neighborhood without their knowledge and got caught, she was dead. The girl apologized and said she was so hungry she had no choice. They wanted her to pay them for stealing on their property. One of the guys told her that her problems were nobody's business, and if she didn't pay, he would kill her. He told 2 other guys to teach her a lesson so she wouldn't even think of coming here again without his money. The girl had already lost all hope, when suddenly a woman came out from the corner who was ready to pay for her and said that it was not good to hit someone and offered to solve everything peacefully. The bullies told the woman to stay out of it and go away, but she was serious about paying for the girl. She tossed a coin and said she thought it would be enough, and the hooligans left. Auntie was very indignant at what she saw. She looked the girl over and offered to go with her to eat the sweets she had bought. Life with Auntie was incomparable to the way she had lived before. She no longer had to shiver from the cold, and there was a roof to protect her from the rain. As they chatted about all sorts of things and ate cake, she was happiest in the world. After living like this for a few happy months, she learned that Aunt Penella, who had always seemed perfect to her, had one terrible flaw. Late at night, Auntie tried to quietly sneak out of the house without waking Adele. When she was already at the front door, the girl called out to her from behind and asked her where she was going. Adele asked why Auntie was going to the casino again if she was going to lose every time. The woman answered her that she had calculated everything, and a person can't lose all the time, and now her probability of winning was only increasing. The girl begged Auntie not to go to the casino because she was losing and Adele was afraid to sleep alone. But Auntie said she had a good premonition tonight. The only drawback was her love of gambling. The woman suggested that Adele go with her, thinking that once there, she would realize how bored she was and would never ask to go with her again. Auntie took her along, just to get her unhooked, but it had an unexpected result. Adele said she knew exactly who at the table was lying. Of course, no one wanted to believe a small child, but Auntie decided to trust her and won very big time. Adele was very happy to have her in her life and dreamed that they would always be together. But it was not meant to be. Auntie was murdered. It was an assassin. He was hired by a merchant who lost a lot of money because of Auntie. After that man killed the woman, he turned to the girl with a knife, and she ran away from there with all her might. She screamed for Auntie forgive for leaving her there. She didn't want to go through that again and promised herself she would never go to the casino again. Adele opened her eyes. Someone was calling her name. She realized she was alive. Her necklace was glowing, and she realized it was the necklace that had saved her. Rudy was on the phone and said that if the magic had been activated, then Miss Adele's life was in danger. He saw her fall into the sea and asked if she was okay. Adele explained that she had swallowed a little water, but overall she was fine, though she thought she was dead. Rudy asked to wait a moment and said that he would carry her to the deck now. Adele speculated that maybe this was payback for not keeping the promise to never gamble again that she made when the casino took her aunt away from her. This time, she really thought she was going to die. Adele was glad no one had noticed anything, and she was in a purple sphere climbing back up to the ship. As she flew past the window, she saw Milord Edwin. He saw her too. The girl realized she was finished. The ship continued to float on the sea in the moonlight. Rudy said thank God she made it to the deck without any trouble and promised to help her any time if the need arose again. The girl sat on the deck, and Milord was already standing beside her. She realized that this was the end, and that's why she had been so lucky the last couple of days. Edwin asked if she could stand up on her own. Milord handed Adele the slippers and said she might hurt herself and asked her to put them on for now. The girl realized that her shoes had apparently been left at sea. Edwin threw his jacket over the girl and asked her to follow him. Adele walked and wondered what would happen next because she had been caught using magic, and now my lord would definitely think she was a fraud, and now she was being taken to prison without any explanation. In prison awaits a gang of rogues with whom she is not on the best of terms. She hoped they would not be put in the same room. As cold-blooded as Edwin was, he wouldn't do that. And if things got really complicated, Rudy would get her out. They entered the room. The lord told the servant to prepare a clean towel for the lady. Adele looked around and asked if this was the prison. Edwin replied that he never thought his private quarters looked like a prison. The girl realized that she had made a mistake and why she had opened her mouth in the first place. Edwin told the girl to sit down and asked how she was feeling. Adele replied that, thanks to him, she was already completely dry and warm. The girl thanked him. My lord asked then to explain what had happened. Adele said that she had accidentally fallen into the water, but Edwin realized that the fence was quite high. He noticed the necklace around the girl's neck. She tried to think of something, and my lord said that that kind of thing was forbidden on the ferry. The protagonist said that the necklace was given to her by her overprotective father. Edwin knew that such an enchanted necklace was hard to get even for members of the imperial family, and decided that her family really loved her. Edwin said that her father's gift had saved her life, and he had no right to ask to remove it before returning to shore. It had been very generous of him not to confiscate it. Edwin explained that magical items were forbidden here for one reason only, to eliminate the possibility of cheating, but in his opinion, the item could not have affected her winning percentage. If she was pursuing some goal with impure intentions, it would be unlikely that she would expose those who cheat and draw all the attention to herself. Edwin said that today's incident would remain a secret and told the servant to escort the lady to her quarters. Adele was glad it was without consequences. When Edwin leaned towards her, she thought it was the end. His face was so close. The girl realized that completely unnecessary thoughts were going through her head. To Adele's mind, he didn't look interested, though he always had an indifferent expression on his face, and it was hard to know what he was up to. He is a man whose behavior was hard to predict. The next day, Adele wanted to take a break from these adventures, but Jade announced that on the third floor, all players must play at least 5 games a day. It annoyed the girl that he was only now announcing this. Even if Adele was going to sit at the table, she had stood out too much these days, and now no one wanted to play with her.